my topic today is development with IBM Worklight and the question of jQuery versus Dojo. So you can see these are two separate things. They're somewhat related, but the way I figured this is going to be a developer-oriented audience. So I want to really get to the question of jQuery versus Dojo, but out of obligation, I need to talk about Worklight as the platform. So let's quickly get through the slides about Worklight itself, so that we can focus on the real question. Before we can talk about Worklight, we need to start with mobile first. And this is a term that represents IBM, everything IBM is doing around mobile. And this chart summarizes all the activities, all the products that we have been building since about a year ago. So you can see the two pillars on the sides represent our services and design branch. We work with customers to make sure they have good design and they have good implementation. And then in the middle represent the products. Starting from the bottom, that's where we have the infrastructure for cloud and managed services. Maybe you want to have public cloud-based or private cloud-based. We can all have the content be running on cloud. So because of time, I'm going to skip a bunch of them and focus on the circle one in the middle, which is actually the centerpiece of the mobile first initiative. It's application data platform. This is where Worklight lives. And if we look a little more deeply into this box of what Worklight as a platform is. So it's basically got these four parts. First thing you see when you try out Worklight is Worklight Studio, because the developer edition of Worklight is freely available on Eclipse Marketplace. And you can download the studio, and it's got the testing server, the database all set up, so you can try building a Worklight application for free. For operational side, we deliver a operational console out of box where you can manage your apps, multiple versions of apps, turn some version on, others off. You get analytics of your usage patterns, how many are running your Worklight application on Android versus iOS, what kind of devices are being used to run these. We have an application center, which is essentially a private app store for development purposes. This is not your production app store. It's for your development teams to easily share their drivers so your testers can install them on the device. And finally, we have the application runtime. This has the server side that manages security, analytics, a bunch of other things, and the client side that runs on the device. And if we focus a little more on the application runtime, we see these four types of apps you can develop with Worklight. There's a misconception that when people buy Worklight, they automatically think this is about hybrid application development. It is true that our main value proposition is with hybrid, but you can also use Worklight to build pure native applications, and you can still get value out of the platform because of the security and analytics version and unified push support we have on the server side. And finally, on the server side, this is an important piece of the Worklight architecture, which is the adapters. This allows you to have integration with a number of different backend systems from your mobile application through a single interface, and that is JavaScript-based JSON RPC. So we won't go into too much details of this because of time, and now let's get to the real question. So I'm somewhat amazed that this question is still being asked after all this time we've been preaching mobile, which is, do I start with jQuery or Dojo? So first of all, some background with this question. jQuery is in the mind of many, many customers because it's popular. When people think about web development, jQuery just pops up. But why Dojo as another option that often gets asked about? This is because Dojo is out of the hundreds of JavaScript libraries you could use with Worklight, Dojo is the one that IBM actually supports, which means if you find problems with Dojo itself, you can submit a ticket to IBM, who will fix it for you. So the question that many customers still ask today is, should I go with jQuery or should I go with Dojo? This is a question that's not very easy to answer. But there's a short answer to that, which is if you want to build everything yourself and you have developers that works with jQuery already, then use jQuery. But if you want IBM support, you want enterprise strength components that have been managed, tested by IBM, then go with Dojo. But there's also many other aspects to this. So let's get to what other aspect you should consider when you ask this question. Number one, why is this question out there in the first place? jQuery is very popular. And as you can see from the chart, the pie chart, the biggest pie piece of the pie is jQuery. And this represents the usage of the top 10 million public websites in the whole world. So somebody actually did the analytics and found these data, and 42% of these apps use jQuery. So it's obviously very popular. However, for enterprise development, there's a different question you want to ask, because jQuery is obviously very good for building websites. And what is a website? It's got contents, it's got image, it's got maybe other links to other websites. But this is not the kind of application you build for enterprise, right? For enterprise, you have web applications that takes users through a task or a workflow. So is jQuery good for those kind of apps? You want to ask this question. And the fact that jQuery is so popular on the web doesn't really answer that question. The question is jQuery good? Does it fit my need for enterprise development? So when we actually ask our customers in conferences, do you use jQuery or do you use Dojo? You get a very different distribution. It's 50-50. 50% of our customers use jQuery, other 50 use Dojo. And Sencha, there is a small fraction of customers use Sencha. So why is that? Why is this big difference in open web versus enterprise? That's because with enterprise application development, you have much more than manipulating the DOM, making images appear. You have many other concerns that jQuery really doesn't give you. So that's number one. Number two is coding experiences is very different between the two. jQuery is very easy to use. It's a couple lines of code and you can make things happen. Dojo used to be like that, but Dojo has gone to the direction of AMD exactly because Dojo wants to cater to the enterprise customers. So Dojo went through a transition from somewhat like jQuery to AMD to be modular based, so enterprise can use it in a more flexible way. So as a result, when you code with Dojo, you have a bigger overhead before you can start coding your business logic. So that's one difference. And finally, getting started, to be honest, jQuery is very easy to get started. One file or two files, and you have all the components you need, and you can build a somewhat decent website. With Dojo, to start with, when you download Dojo from the web, you have close to 15,000 files, right? So that's not one or two files. Because Dojo packages everything together, and you have those many modules to choose from for your application. So getting started with Dojo is not as straightforward as jQuery. And finally, documentation, there's a little bit gap. Used to be a huge issue with Dojo, But as a 1.8 release of Dojo, documentation has gotten much better. And this is the important chart I want you to take away with. jQuery versus Dojo is not the right question. The right question is, do you build your own stack or do you use Dojo? Because I mentioned jQuery doesn't give you everything you need for enterprise development. It just gives you basic capabilities of doing DOM manipulation, changing the style on some elements, and doing that stuff. But for a enterprise level architecture, you need templating system, you need a test framework, you need MVC, you need data binding, you need routing. So all these architecture layers you can't get with jQuery. You have to find other JavaScript libraries that can work with jQuery. Essentially, you end up with a stack that you built yourself. That's what I meant by BYOS, build your own stack. So Dojo took a very different approach. Dojo was targeting enterprise customers from the get-go. So Dojo is building everything in one package, and they've been tested to work together. So there's good and there's pros and cons with this approach. So in the end, make your own decision, but realize with jQuery you're building your own stacks. With Dojo you get everything in one package. So finally, I want to close with this slide to show you a landscape of the modern JavaScript development. So especially when you're building enterprise-level applications, you're not just dealing with one thing. You're dealing with many, many packages from different sources. And a lot of them are now standardized on one single format, which is AMD. It's a module system for JavaScript. Think of OSGI for Java. And because of this, you need something that can manage these packages for you. So you see this Bauer and Volo as package managers that can handle dependencies for you. And on the right side, you have CommonJS that has JavaScript running on the server side based on Node.js. So I see I'm running out of time. If you have questions, we can discuss. Thank you.